Just keep it. Just keep it. Yeah. Just keep it authentic TV where we only speak on facts. Just keep it authentic TV. We keep it real, no cap. Just keep it authentic TV where we keep it authentic. Just keep it authentic TV. We don't do no pretending. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Take a sit, enjoy the vibe. Yo. Like, share, subscribe. Take a sit, enjoy the vibe. Yo. Keep it authentic TV, where the facts outweigh the lies. Keep it authentic TV, where nothing but truth resides. Keep it authentic, share the vibe. Come enjoy the fun and don't forget to subscribe. Keep it authentic TV, where the facts outweigh the lies. Keep it authentic TV, where nothing but truth resides. Just keep it authentic, yeah. They keep it authentic. You can just keep it authentic, yeah. They keep it authentic. Just keep it authentic. They keep it authentic. Baby, just keep it authentic. They keep it authentic. Hit the like button, share the vibe. Come and join the fun and don't forget to subscribe. Just keep it authentic TV. Just keep it authentic TV. Just keep it authentic. Just keep it authentic. Let's go.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Let's go.
Welcome in, welcome in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Friday to everybody, man. Welcome to another episode of Keep It Authentic TV with your host, Blanco. Today on the menu, man, we got some new news. We got some new news. Now, this news we bringing to you today, right? I've heard this theory before. I have heard this theory before, and I'm not gonna lie to y'all, man. When I first heard this, I was like, nah, I ain't buying it. I ain't going for it. But now we done had somebody come out and kind of make a little sense of this thing, right? So as y'all can see from the title, right, we got some new explosive claims that implicates Bart as the killer. Allegedly, right? Okay, now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm taking this person's word at face value. But I got to be open-minded about this situation, right? And I got to at least listen to what he got to say and listen to his explanation and reasoning for it. So without further ado, man, we're going to go ahead and get into this video. These explosive new claims implicating Bart as the killer of Nolan Wells. Now, I got to put it out there, right? Okay, this gentleman, I think he goes by the name of Danny. I don't know what his last name is. I'm not sure if he's a TikTok creator or not. I do know, however, that, the video that he posted that we're about to view, it came from TikTok. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to check it out. We're going to analyze it. And we're going to come to our own conclusion to find out, is what he's saying true or is he just clout chasing? So let's go ahead and get into this video, man, and we're going to see what's going on.
Willie D Live.
What's up, family? Well, it appears that everybody wants to know what happened to Nolan Wells. Well, not everybody, but many people wants to know what happened to Nolan Wells. Well, there's a guy on TikTok who goes by the name of Danny Collins, who says he knows exactly what happened to Nolan Wells. He believes Bart did it. Yeah, fam.
He believes who did it?
He just straight up said, Bart did it. Check him out.
In the Nolan Wells case, Bart did it. Now, this is allegedly, but I believe that Bart did it. I believe that Bart had some type of relationship with Katie. Katie was obviously with Nolan. Bart had a jealous rage seeing a young black male with a white female. We know in states like Mississippi, I see it all the time in my community where white guys get jealous.
Okay, hold on. We got somebody in the comments that said they didn't hear. So we gonna back it up. We're gonna back it up, and we're gonna make sure everybody catch this information. So we're gonna back it up.
What's up, family? Well, it appears that everybody wants to know what happened to Nolan Wells. Well, not everybody, but many people wants to know what happened to Nolan Wells. Well, there's a guy on TikTok who goes by the name of Danny Collins.
Okay, the gentleman that's presenting this information that we're about to listen to, right? He's off of TikTok. His name is Danny Collins. So if you are a person that uses the platform TikTok, feel free to go over there and search up Danny Collins, and possibly he possibly still may have this video up on his TikTok page. So feel free to go over there on TikTok, search him up, Danny Collins, and y'all can check the video out and y'all can analyze it yourself and determine whether you believe what he's saying or if you believe he's just clout chasing. But we're gonna watch this and we're gonna listen to what he has to say, and we're gonna listen to his explanation and his reasoning for allegedly believing that Bart is the killer of Nolan Wells. So let's continue.
Who says he knows exactly what happened to Nolan Wells. He believes Bart did it. Yeah, fam, he just straight up said, Bart did it. Check him out.
In the Nolan Wells case, Bart did it. Now, this is allegedly, but
Can y'all hear the video? Let me know if you can hear the video.
Bart had some type of relationship with Katie. Katie was obviously with Nolan. Bart had a jealous rage seeing a young black male with a white female. We know in states like Mississippi, I see it all the time in my community where white guys get jealous to see black guys with white girls. I've seen it a million times, and people who deny this are flat out lying. I believe what happened was that Bart put Nolan in a chokehold, and he didn't realize his own strength, and Nolan did not wake up. Hence the reason why we hear in the background of the CTO call, we hear, "Damn it, Bart, Nolan, wake the fuck up, is he dead?" All this is allegedly now. Well,
Okay, let's stop right there for a minute. Now, I know many of us has heard the theory that, Nolan was possibly put in a chokehold of some sorts, right? Henceforth, why we see this injury, this deep reddening of the subcutaneous tissue on the back of his head. You know what I'm saying? Now, with that being said, right, can we concretely, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, say that, hey, Bart was the one that did it? No, we can't. You know what I'm saying? However, who knows? He may have some other information that we don't know about. But like I said, I'm listening. So what he's saying is that he's saying that the reason that he believes Bart did it is because, they're saying that, okay, y'all remember when everybody was talking about supposedly, right? Allegedly, Bart and Katie was dating or they had something going on or whatever. Now, I know that they tried to throw some pictures and photos up saying that, these were photos of Bart and Katie together or whatever. Okay, those photos has been debunked as not being, photos of Bart and Katie. So we know that. We know that those photos that were put out, those weren't, real photos. Now they didn't explain if the photos were fake, AI generated, or what. They didn't explain that. But they did, however, say that the photos weren't real. You know what I'm saying? So, we have already sort of debunked the theory that Bart and Katie were dating because according to their own words, Bart said that, he didn't know Katie. Katie said she didn't know him. And then in this most recent interview that Warren did with Officer Tatum, he said that none of these guys knew Katie. Now, Trayston is saying that he knew Katie. Now, I'm not disputing that. He may have known Katie, and nothing has come out to say that he didn't previously know Katie or he did. So I'm just taking his word for it at this point. He said that he knew Katie beforehand, but he's the only one saying that he knew Katie beforehand. Everybody else is saying they didn't know of this girl until that day. You know what I'm saying? So let's continue to see what he has to say. But keep in mind, right? As far as we know, the truth is that Bart and Katie never had anything going on. So, if you want to entertain that theory, feel free to entertain that theory, do your research on it, and figure out what's the truth and what's not. But let's continue.
If he just accidentally killed him, then why wouldn't they bring him to the police? Because Bart has so much to lose. He was the star football player on his way to the NFL. A manslaughter charge, whether it's involuntary or voluntary or a negligent homicide, is not going to look well on his resume and would obviously disqualify him from his NFL career.
Okay, let's stop right there, because I've said this as well, before. Okay, we all know that Bart is an aspiring NFL football player, right? His goal is to go to the NFL. So we have to look at this, right? And we have to analyze this, with an unbiased and open mind, right? Okay, yes, when he says, okay, I can understand why, they wouldn't go to the police and say, hey, look, my friend, whatever, right? Give whatever story they're going to give. Because at the end of the day, if we really look at this situation, right? Now let's look at all of the people involved. You know what I'm saying? And everybody that was on that island is not involved. Okay, but let's look at the ones that are. So you got Bart, you got Jax, you got Morgan, you got Nolan. You got Warren. I don't really include Katie because she hasn't really said much. You know what I'm saying? But you got Warren, Bart, Jax, Morgan, right? And Wyatt. So now out of these guys that's involved in this, or potential suspects, or people that we're speculating as being suspects, or having some type of knowledge of what happened if they're not directly involved. Okay, yes, a lot of these people have sat down and given their version of events. Okay, and so far, when it comes to the court of public opinion, a lot of us are not believing it. A lot of us are not buying it, but we have legit reasons for that, right? Okay, listen, when you sit down with someone, right, and you tell a story, and then you sit down with them again and you tell the same story, but something's added or something's taken away, then you sit down with them again and the same thing happens. Something's either added or taken away. Okay, then that tends to lead a person to believe that, okay, maybe you're not telling the truth, or maybe you're not telling the entire truth about this situation, right? Now, as a person in the comments said, right, we can suspect whatever we want to suspect, right? But that's all we can do at this point, because we really have no answers for anything. And we got to keep in mind of what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal is to find out what happened to Nolan Wells. You know what I'm saying? And thus far, we have zero. Nobody can tell us anything. And it is very, very, very difficult to believe that you had this many people in one spot and nobody saw anything. That is very, very hard to believe. But let's continue listening to what Danny has to say.
Of his football stardom, and apparently he has a family with the same pedigree, he has clout around town enough to get people to remain silent, enough to help construct an alibi, and also put the fear of God in these kids. Tell them that you're also going to be implicated in this, and we're all going to go down. We're all going to be arrested. Also, why they tried to place Bart not at the scene initially. Now, they went on a speaking tour. Warren did the most talking, and listening to him talk with Officer Tatum, he almost did too much talking and told on the crew. Warren says that when they got the boat back, that he went upstairs to talk to the father of one of the kids. Rather than hanging out with everybody downstairs, he says that they were talking about boats up there. Now, why would you even bring this up? Like, why would this even be a part of the story if it was such an innocuous thing that you were just going upstairs to randomly talk to a father about boats? The reality is because they weren't talking about boats. They were constructing an alibi and a cover story. And when they came downstairs, it was automatically like, oh, what happened to Nolan? Where is Nolan? Has anybody seen Nolan? Let's call the Coast Guard. Why would they call CETO? Why would they call the Coast Guard? Because it creates a timeline. It creates like a paper trail of where they could have been anywhere but with Nolan. Also, why would you call the Coast Guard if you truly believe that Nolan just was behind with the girl Katie? Even if Katie had came back at that point, why wouldn't you think he's off with some other girl or doing something else? Why would you think something nefarious happened? Why? Because you had his phone and you knew that something nefarious happened. Again, this is allegedly. Let's smoke them out. What doesn't come out in a wash always comes out in a rinse.
Okay, let's stop right there, right? Let's stop right there. Okay.
Hey, y'all got denim? Hold on.
My bad. Let's hold fast right here for a minute, right? Okay, so listen, right? Let me ask a question. First and foremost, right? How many of y'all are buying the story that he's telling? How many of y'all believe what he's saying? You believe what he's saying? Now, don't get me wrong, right? He has a lot of, he makes a lot of sense to what he's saying, right? And it does the pieces do kind of fit together. You know what I'm saying? And, I would understand. Okay, so listen, right? I can understand, why he would say a lot of the things that he's saying. Okay. Do you believe what this Danny Collins guy is saying? The guy that we just listened to, right? Are y'all buying his story? Do y'all believe that he's telling the truth, or do y'all believe he's clout chasing? Now, I'm going to say this, right? After listening to him give his explanation, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now, my wife said, right, and she did say this earlier. She said, and that's what I said originally. They said Bart was on a different boat, but his voice is heard in the audio, and it sounds like he was on the boat that Nolan was on. Okay, now listen, that audio, it's been out for a minute now. I'm sure that everybody has heard it, and if you haven't heard it, I would advise you to go listen to it and form your own opinion, right? Okay, so listen, right, as far as the audio is concerned, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything they're saying is being said in that audio is 100% accurate, right? I listened to that audio numerous times. Yes, the damn it, Bart, I can make that out. The check his chest, I can make that out. The is he dead, I can make that out. But there are some things being said in that audio that I can't 100% accurately say, okay, that's what's being said. Now, once again, I'm not defending anyone and I'm not convicting anyone. I'm just trying to piece this thing together just like everybody else is. You know what I'm saying? So somebody in the comments says, I mean, it sounds legit to me, but it's not a proven fact yet. Okay, she's 100% right about that. You know what I'm saying? The story does sound legit. I'm not going to sit here and say that this Danny Collins guy is just strictly clout chasing. What he said makes a lot of sense. And it's a theory that, we at least got to look at and say, maybe we need to go down this avenue, investigate this a little bit more, and see if there's any truth to what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? So once again, like he said, right? And that's just the fact of it. That's not, you know, accusing Bart of anything, but we gotta look at the facts. Out of all of these people involved, right, Bart probably has the most to lose. He's an aspiring punter, you know what I'm saying, who is, looking to go to the NFL. If you get convicted of a murder case, whether it's first degree, second degree, a homicide case, uh, and a lot of other stuff, right? Oh, my computer going crazy over here. So, I could understand why Bart, you know, if he had anything to do with this. Once again, I'm not accusing him. I'm not accusing him of anything. But if he had something to do with this, right? You know, he knows deep down inside that, okay, if I go down for this, my career is over. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, he has the most incentive to say, hey, look, this is the story we gonna give. You know what I'm saying? Y'all stick to the script. And because if you don't stick to the script, guess what's gonna happen? If I go down, all of us go down. You see how that works? That's where the term guilty by association comes in. Sometimes, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not always the right thing to do to protect your friends, right? Because let's just be real about this, right? If the shoe was on the other foot, right? Let's just say Warren was the person that did it, right? Do y'all believe that Bart or any of these other guys would cover up for him? Yeah, it's probably just the way the mic sounds. I am saying Bart, not Bark. Hey, but listen, right? Okay, let me ask that question again. If it was somebody else that they were implicating as the person that did this, right? Do y'all think that Bart would be involved in helping cover it up for them? See, I asked my wife this question before, right? I said, listen, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes everybody you call a friend ain't really your friend, right? Because a real friend, if they knew they accidentally, now let's just hypothetically speak here for a minute. If you accidentally killed somebody, right? Because look, we all know that things like this can happen. You can put a person in a chokehold and not realize your own strength or not realize how much pressure you're putting on them. And if the person doesn't like struggle in a way that would lead you to believe that, they can't breathe, they're getting ready to pass out, you probably wouldn't, think nothing of it because y'all playing. As kids, brothers and sisters, they horseplay, they wrestle with each other, they put each other in chokeholds, all that different type of stuff, right? So we just hypothetically speaking for a moment right now. So is it possible that he could have put Nolan in a chokehold and not realized how much pressure he was putting on this gentleman's neck or not realize his own strength? Yes, that's possible. You know what I'm saying? It still doesn't make it right. You know what I'm saying? So if that, in fact, is what happened, right? I agree with what Danny said. Okay, if that's the case, why didn't somebody go to the police and say, hey, look, man, I don't know what's going on. My two buddies, they was wrestling around with each other. My buddy put him in a chokehold, and now he's passed out, and I don't know what's going on. Can we get some help out here? Okay, if you had to handle it like that, right? I believe that this case probably wouldn't be the way it is right now. But because there's so much information being hidden, you know what I'm saying? It's like, who do we believe? Like, what do we believe? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not gonna lie to you. In the beginning, when this thing first jumped off, right? I was all on Nolan's ass. I mean, excuse me, I was all on Warren's ass. I'm like, yeah, he either knows something or he involved in it. But now hearing this, I'm like, maybe Warren didn't have nothing to do with it. You know what I'm saying? But he does know something. You know what I'm saying? Because a key point, right? Like he said, in all these interviews that's been done with Officer Tatum and Warren, if you notice and you pay attention, Warren is the one doing all the talking. Okay, he just recently sat down, him, Jax, and Morgan, I believe it was. They just recently sat down with Officer Tatum and they had their civil attorney with him. And if you look at that interview, right, Warren is the one doing all of the talking, just like the two previous interviews. He's doing all the talking. You know what I'm saying? Now, in this last recent interview, there is another guy who's sitting down with them who did chime in for a few minutes. But for the most part, Warren did all the talking. But let's continue to see what Willie D has to say about this and whether he believes if this guy's telling the truth or not.
I ain't got no problem with that. Danny, just put it on out there, man. Just, hey, man, this is what it is. This is what I think. I've heard a couple of people who share a very similar theory, especially in regards to that conversation, going upstairs and talking to Pops and, what's all of that about? And what's all that about with calling the dispatcher, but before calling the dispatcher, calling Grandpa? That's on Wyatt right there. What's up with that? See, the question isn't whether thousands of people online believe Bart did it. The question is, dun, dun, dun.
She said, hell no, Bart wouldn't cover up for nobody.
Whether one piece of evidence or reliable evidence can prove Bart did anything. That's the question. Can one piece of reliable evidence prove that Bart did anything? Because they're not going to convict or even charge Bart on suspicion. They're not going to charge him on our beliefs. Personally, I think Bart is in a heap of trouble. And I do believe that Bart was on that boat. I do believe, because look, Warren said it. Warren said, my buddy Bart. First he said, my buddy. Then he said, Bart, he let it slip a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
See, Warren, boy, that boy came.
See, I caught that early on. Remember I said that, babe? I caught that earlier on. I said, listen, he's trying to protect somebody because he kept addressing Bart as my buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy. Then he let it slip. He let it slip a couple times, and he mentioned his name. You know what I'm saying? So I caught that earlier on. But let's keep going.
Hold water. He cannot hold water. So Bart's, from what I heard, at one point claimed that he was still in Wyoming, playing football. I guess he's out there, well, that's where he played football at, but he was in Wyoming and not Ocean Springs, Mississippi. So therefore, he couldn't have been involved. But Warren placed him at the scene of the crime. I mean,
Hold on. Let's hear that again.
he was in Wyoming and not Ocean Springs, Mississippi. So therefore, he couldn't have been involved. But Warren placed him at the scene.
He said Warren placed him at the scene. Warren placed you at the scene, bruh. So listen, this is what I be saying to y'all, right? Listen, this is why I tell people, right? If you gonna go out and commit crime, do it by yourself. Don't involve a bunch of other people in it because listen, when the heat comes down, somebody gonna break. Somebody is gonna break. Now listen, right? I'm just gonna be as real as I possibly can. I gotta keep it authentic with y'all, man. Listen, just like he said, Warren can't hold water, bro. That man, and listen, I'm not gonna sit here and hold y'all. Yes, he is doing the best that he can. But I'm telling y'all, he is finna break. He is finna break, right? Because I'm gonna tell y'all what they thought. What they thought was, you know, they thought they was gonna be able to just say, hey, look, he accidentally drowned. Because let's look at this, right? Okay, we all know that all of them was out there drinking. They've already stated to us, and they're trying to make us believe that Nolan was so intoxicated because he had been drinking all day. He was using drugs and all this other type of stuff, right? This is what they're trying to get us to believe. Okay, so we know, yes, they was out there drinking. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, for the lack of, arguing, we know that this is what 18 and 19-year-olds do. When they go out for the weekend to party, they're drinking. They may be using a little drugs. You know what I'm saying? This is what they do. But now, why isn't anybody like, what bothers me about this, right? Because I feel like if certain questions were being asked and certain avenues were being pursued, right, then we would be a lot further along in this case as far as receiving some answers, right? So, okay, let me read this comment right here. She says, but Warren said in the last interview that Tatum dude that he talked to, okay, he talked to Nolan's several times. Okay, yeah, you're right. He did say that. He did say that, right? But like now, what was I saying again? Okay, so listen, as I was saying, right? You know, um, you know, if certain questions and certain avenues was being pursued, right? I believe we would be much further along in this case as far as getting to some answers. So why hasn't anyone asked, well, what adult furnished these underage kids with all of this alcohol? Because let's be real about this, right? The only person that they're saying was 21 and above is Bart. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this? The only one that they are listing as being 21 and above is Bart. Okay, yes, they did say that there was some parents out there. I don't know who all's parents was out there. It's been said that Nolan's biological mother was out there for a little bit because she dropped off his little brother. It was said that there were some other parents out there. It was said that Katie's dad was out there. Okay, so my question is that, okay, we've all established the fact through photos, videos, and all of that, right, that everybody was out there drinking. But not everybody out there was of legal drinking age. So my question would be, which one of you adults furnished these underage kids with this alcohol? Because listen, if you start putting the pressure on these adults and you start coming down on these adults for the bullshit role that they played in it, because listen, I don't care what nobody say. These 18, 19-year-olds wasn't able to go in the liquor store and buy no alcohol. I ain't buying that. You know what I'm saying? I'm 52 years old, and because my identification card is expired, they won't even serve me alcohol. So I'm not buying that these kids just walked into a liquor store and bought all this alcohol. No, it was an adult that bought this for them. And y'all need to figure out who that adult was, and y'all need to come down on their ass, and y'all need to charge them with furnishing minors with alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Because I believe it was one of these kids' parents, and I believe the person that furnished this alcohol is in a high place. They hold some prestige somewhere. They're either a judge, a lawyer, or they a doctor. There's something. And they don't want it to come out that I was the one that bought all this alcohol for these kids. So I think that question needs to be asked. You know what I'm saying? I think they need to start asking more in-depth questions. Listen, these interviews that Officer Brandon Tatum is doing, listen, like I heard another gentleman say this last night when I was watching some of his content, right? He says he respects Brandon Tatum as a person, but as a professional, he has no respect for him. And I can agree with that, right? Because as a professional and you're doing interviews with people, you need to be asking the questions that your viewers and your audience want answers to. You can't just ask these little vague questions and accept the answer that you're giving, and it's like that's what he's doing. Like it's like his mission is to go out here and number one, prove that these boys are innocent, when nobody said that they was guilty of anything. Number two, I believe he's being paid off by somebody. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know who that somebody is. And number three, I believe, like I said, when I look at Officer Brandon Tatum, right, and he's an ex Tucson, Arizona police officer, right? When I look at him, I told y'all this yesterday, right? He reminds me of that kid that nobody wanted to pick on their basketball team on the playground. He reminds me of that kid that nobody wanted to play hide and seek with. None of the girls wanted to play around with him. When the kids was out in the neighborhood riding bikes, they didn't want him riding with them. He was just one of them outcast kids. You know what I'm saying? And then he grew up, became a police officer, probably bullied a few people on the force, out of anger and animosity because he had a troubled childhood. And for some strange reason, I believe, and this is just my personal belief, I believe he was fired from the force or he was forced to resign because he doesn't look old enough to be able to retire. So, once again, I believe that he's just taking the answers that's being given to him of the questions that he's asking, and he's just taking those and saying, okay, I believe you. Like he's not challenging anything. So therefore, like I said, but his mission is to prove that these boys are innocent. And because nobody's really buying that, so now he's kind of shifted to trying to paint this narrative as like, okay, these boys have cooperated fully with law enforcement and all this different type of stuff, right? So it's like, okay, listen, yes, a lot of these boys have cooperated with law enforcement. Yes, they've turned over their phones. Yes, they've allowed people to search their boats. Yes, they've, allowed access to their social media accounts or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yes, they've done that. Okay, but why is it that, yeah, they've taken voice stress tests and all that stuff, right? But why hasn't Warren done any of this stuff, right? It's never been reported that Warren turned over his phone. And this is what Officer Tatum said himself. He said all of the boys took the voice stress test except for Nolan. I mean, excuse me, except for Warren. He said all of the boys had turned over their cell phones. He never said Warren turned over his cell phone. Okay, Warren don't own a boat for a boat to be searched. So that's irrelevant. Okay, but why is he refusing certain things that the other boys are voluntarily doing with no problem. So what that leads me to believe is that, okay, listen, Warren, you either were involved in this, and the way things is going right now, I don't think you was personally involved, but I do believe you know something. You know, and like I said, the more he sits down and talks, he's going to break. He's going to break. This is too much pressure for him to be able to handle. He is going to break, and when he does, it's going to break this case wide open. And it's going to show a lot of people that all of these different speculations that's being thrown out to there, all these different theories that's being thrown out there, it's going to show people that we knew exactly what we were talking about all along. So, with that being said, right, we're going to go ahead and try to get through the rest of this little uh clip right here because it's just about done. We're going to try to get through this, man, because I got a few other things I want to bring to y'all attention. But if we got enough time, we're gonna see if we can get to that. But let's try to get through this real quick.
Of the crime. I'm at the scene, uh, of the alleged crime. Warren placed him there by inadvertently saying his name. So the thing is, Warren still, or not Warren, but Bart still hasn't explained that part. Warren hasn't even explained it. When they went on Tatum's show, I wonder why he didn't ask them that. Like, hey, man, can you clear up this thing about you saying you was in Wyoming, and uh, what did you mean, Warren, when you said my buddy, and then you finally said Bart. Was Bart on the boat? Well, Bart was on the boat. Well, Bart, why'd you say he was in Wyoming? You dig what I'm saying? You got to get there one way or the other. Bart did it, is what Danny said. Question is, do you believe Bart did it? Give me a thumbs up if you believe Bart did it. Thumbs down if you say, no, Will, man, you're fishing, man. You're fishing. You're going too far. I don't think he did it. I don't think he had anything to do with it.
Y'all get down in the
I'll
comments
give
and
you
let
a few
me know.
moments to
Y'all
think about
think
it.
Bart did it,
Okay,
or y'all
time's up.
think
Hey,
y'all
listen,
think
fam.
he clout chasing?
If the evidence clears him, if it shows the public what can legally be released, and it proves that nothing is there, well, nothing is there. Ain't nothing gonna happen. You see, because an unsupported accusation, they're gonna say should not destroy a young man's reputation. That's what they're gonna say. Cannot destroy a young man's reputation. Leave it to the lawyer, though. The lawyer said they will find upstanding citizens. I wonder would he had said that if they were poor white guys. They were just some poor white guys caught up in the crosshairs of justice. What they had, what the lawyer had made a statement like that. You know, maybe Bart did it turns out to be an important lead. Okay. Maybe it turns out to be completely wrong.
A 4-second shot is a clip. A 30.
We don't know, but we damn sure gonna find out. That's for sure.
Maybe, maybe not. We will see real soon, though. We're going to see real soon. We're going to see if the evidence backs up Danny Collins' theory. One way to figure that out is, man, haul everybody in. Talk to everybody. Talk to those girls and Katie, the missing lady, the mystery lady. We got to talk to Katie. Katie, tell us what you know, Katie. Who need $125,000? Y'all know that's what the award is, right? We might have to go ahead on and do something. We might have to, start our own fund, fam, and raise a cool $1,000,000. See, this is what we're gonna have to get to. We got to understand that justice ain't free, especially for us. Justice ain't free. And if we want to make sure that if something like that happens to us or our loved ones, when we got the funds, the resources to find out what really happened, then we got to set a precedence. We got to know, we got to get on code and be like, okay, this is what we do every single time, just like they do when anytime one of these uncivilized must harm a black person, what do? They go straight to crowdfunding and raise them $500,000, $1 million or more. Quick. It don't matter if they wrong. It does not matter if they wrong or right. The uncivilized mutts are going to uncivilize mutt and raise a whole bunch of money. Oftentimes money they ain't never seen in their life or they never would see in their life had they not committed a racist act, had they not said something derogatory toward another human being. Ain't that something? Ain't that something how they can reward bad behavior? See, that's the problem right now in America because over centuries, America has rewarded bad behavior. Now, obviously, they pick and choose what bad behavior they want to reward, but there really ain't never been any severe penalties for, being racist in this country. There really has not. They always look out for each other. Think about what I'm saying. If you really look back, I'm talking about consistent. I'm not talking about one-offs. I'm talking about consistently. That really has never, ever, ever, never been a real push to punish those who commit racist acts. In fact, I would argue that there's been a push to reward them, from law enforcement to education to politics to healthcare. And I can go on and on and on. The real estate industry, construction, travel, on and on and on, fashion. Yeah, they reward bad behavior. How many times has police been caught up in a murder where they killed a black person who was unarmed and they got promoted? Or they got suspended with pay. And then when they came back to work, they allowed them to come back to work and get a whole bunch of money, go raise a whole bunch of money for their crowdfunding. Then they turn around and they might decide they either get a promotion and continue to work and get paid off the taxpayer dollars. And you know what? That those taxpayer dollars include the family of the deceased. They also pay into that fund where these uncivilized mutts get to feed their families, put a roof over their head, go on vacation, put their kids through college.
Hold on, let me stop. It's not funny, man. It's not funny because me and my wife, we got into a little debate about this the other day, right? And this was something that I didn't know either because I've never really heard it used like that. But Willie, man, look, I love you, brother, and I fuck with you. You know what I'm saying? I've been fucking with you since the Ghetto Boy days. But listen, you gotta stop using that uncivilized mutts term, bro. Listen, I did some research on that, and depending on the context that you use it in, it can be defined as a racial slur. Now, listen, once again, I'm not saying you're racist, bro. I love you. You know what I'm saying? I've been fucking with you since the Ghetto Boy days. But you know, you gotta find a different term to use other than uncivilized mutts, because when you use that, right, like there's gonna be groups of people that's gonna look at that and they're gonna be like, hey, he's racist. You know what I'm saying? He's demeaning or saying derogatory things about the white race. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't know if that's what your intention is. You know what I'm saying? But my recommendation and my advice to you would be try to find a different term to use other than that. You know what I'm saying? Because we want to try to keep this thing. Now we understand that race has already been brought into it. But that's because of the history of the state of Mississippi. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that there aren't some black folks who just don't like white folks, for the lack of better words, right? And whatever your personal reason is for, having a disagreement or disliking another race of people, that's your personal reason. It is what it is. I really can care either way. I love everybody. We're all human beings at the end of the day. That's the only race I see. It's the human race. So, like, but, just for future references, bro, because I don't want to see, I don't want to see the backlash come down on you. I don't want to see you, end up losing, what I'm saying, what you worked so hard to build behind, you using a term that can be defined as a racial slur. So I just wanted to throw that out there, man. Look, please try to find a better way of describing these people other than calling them uncivilized mutts, man. But let's keep going.
Yeah, ain't that something? It's a cold-blooded game, man. Cold-blooded game. Bart was cool until Warren opened his mouth. Bart, you ought to be mad. If you really didn't have anything to do with it, I say you flip on Warren, because your name would have never been mentioned had Warren not said your name. We didn't know who you were. We didn't know you existed. I think you should kick Warren to the curb like you kick those footballs. You're not going to the pros. Even if you do, you're going to be a disruption.
he said if you didn't have anything to do with it, I would kick Warren to the curb like you kicked them footballs. Hey, listen, man, it's not funny, right? But listen, I agree with that. I agree with that. Warren, you fucked up, man. You fucked up bad too. And I kept telling people, right? I kept telling people earlier on. I said, listen, just let him keep talking, and he gonna fuck it up. Listen, look, it always happens. We see this happen all the time, right? You get a group of niggas get swooped up in a raid. You got the one person, and the whole group is like, all right, look, this the story. We're gonna stick to this story right here. Everybody say this, we good. But see, what they fail to understand is that the line of questioning is not going to be the same for everybody. You feel me? That's number one. The line of questioning is not going to be the same for everybody. The same detective is not going to interview everybody. There's going to be multiple people involved in this, right? So it's like, it's going to be very hard to stick to the script, because you know what? Okay, listen, they might come in and ask you certain questions. Then they might come in the room with me and ask me certain questions. Then they might go in the room with somebody else and ask them certain questions. And then y'all know how the police play, man. The police will blatantly lie to your face and say, hey, well, your buddy said this. Your buddy said you the one that did it. And it's like, come on now, as a human being, right? If an officer comes in and say, hey, look, your buddy told me X, Y, and Z. 9 times out of 10, you going to sit there and look at that officer, and you going to have the defeated look on your face. You're going to be like, damn, I can't believe my homie turned on me like that. And it's a straight, bold-faced lie. Your buddy ain't said a damn thing about you. That's just what they telling you, because they know if they tell you that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to fold and be like, all right, man, look, this will really happen. And I believe their biggest mistake was allowing Warren to be the spokesperson. Because not only can he not give a consistent story, but if you look at these interviews, right, like he's like he can get asked a certain question and he elaborates on that one question for far too long. Like you can ask him a question and he'll give you a 15-minute long answer. I don't need that long of an answer. Listen, I said, listen, did you do this? It's nah, I didn't do it. Okay, cool. So if you say you didn't do it, well, let me ask you this. And then I don't need no 15, 20-minute long answer. Just give me, 5 minutes at most. You know what I'm saying? Tell me you didn't do it and then give me your explanation for why I should believe you. But when you speaking to me and you answering a question that I'm asking you for 15 minutes, yeah, you something ain't right. You trying to cover up something. You trying to protect somebody. You trying to, hope. And like I keep saying, man, I'm telling y'all what they thought. I believe that audio was real. That audio came from the Ceto company theirself. Now, I will say this. I don't know how the internet got a hold of it. I will say that. But we do know for a fact the company Ceto, they released that audio call. When Wyatt made that call to let them know, hey, we need a tow, the boat sinking, whoop-de-whoop, all that, that was the call that Ceto released. Now, once again, I don't know who they released it to, but I don't think that they released it to the internet. I believe they released it to some type of authority figure, and maybe that person leaked it to the internet. But we gotta also keep in mind, like you gotta be open minded and unbiased about this, right? Because we know when certain things hit the internet, right, people will AI the shit out of it. People will doctor that shit up to coincide with the narrative and the story that they're trying to run. Like we see this all the time, right? Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every content creator on YouTube is 100% authentic. I'm not saying that they're not. But listen, we've seen content creators run with a narrative just because it gets clicks and views. We've seen it. You know what I'm saying? And don't try to act like you haven't. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, right? Most of the content creators that I follow and most of the content creators whose content that I watch, for the most part, they've been pretty, on point and accurate with the information that they put out there. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit up here and tell you I believe everything. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't take nobody's word for everything. You know what I'm saying? I don't care who it is. You know what I'm saying? If you tell me something, I'm always going to go back and double check it. You know what I'm saying? And that's no disrespect to the person that's telling me the information. It's just that, before I run with the information, I want to be kind of like, I want to kind of be sure that, hey, this information is credible. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying. And like I said, no disrespect to any of the content creators out there because, like I said, I'm a content creator. So, but, I don't deal with everybody. I only got a handful of content creators that I actually really fuck with. Shout out to Willie D Live. Shout out to Poetic Flacco. Shout out to Fugitive TV, Don Lemon. Uh, who else? AK-47. Shout out to him. Shout out to Just Say No to Sko. You know what I'm saying? Nina Boy TV. Glasses Malone, The Lunchroom. I got a few other ones out there, but those are like those are mainly the ones that I watch. You know what I'm saying? And like, listen, I know a lot of the ones that I name. I know they black. You know what I'm saying? But listen, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, right? A lot of the white content creators, they're in the streaming industry. So you see a lot of them on Twitch, you know what I'm saying, and Kick and like that. And like I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't mess with the Aiden Rosses and the goddamn Nick Fuentes and I don't mess with those folks because like those folks got their own little agenda going on and I don't want no parts of that. So I don't deal with them types of folks. You know what I'm saying? But, I try to, I try to align myself with people that's open-minded, people that, we are able to sit down, even if we have a difference of opinion, we can still sit down as adults, you know what I'm saying, and say, hey, look, even though we don't agree on this, let's look at the sense that it makes. Let's make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, with that being said, right, we're gonna end the video right here. I need everybody to get down in the comments. And number one, right, let me know if you believe what Danny Collins said on TikTok. You believe that Bart did it? If you believe Bart did it, put it in the comments. Let me know. If you believe Bart didn't do it, put it in the comments. Let me know. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, this Nolan Wells case, man, it's been turned upside down. You know what I'm saying? And it's like they don't want to give us no answers to nothing. They don't want to release no information to nobody. You know what I'm saying? This autopsy is complete. You know what I'm saying? The toxicology report is done. I know damn well the grand jury done had it already. You know what I'm saying? How long they gonna have it? You know what I'm saying? See, this is what these are the types of things that make people suspect that the state of Mississippi is trying to cover this up, because it's like y'all done had this toxicology report and this autopsy. Y'all done had it for at least what, a week and a half now. You know what I'm saying? So how long is the grand jury gonna have it before y'all finally release it to the public so we can actually see and know what happened? You know what I'm saying? But like I said, man, it's been real, man. You know, and we're gonna keep bringing you this story, right? Because we're not gonna stop pushing this story until we get the truth. You know what I'm saying? That's the goal. The goal is to get the truth, and whatever the truth may be, we're going to have to accept that for what it is. But it's your boy Blanco, man, everybody's favorite uncle, and you've been tuned in to another episode of Keep It Authentic TV. Until the next one, we out.